last time. Sorry, me and Brent were talking yesterday about the idea that I want to talk to you about. But long story
I thought you were
very
going to
short.
say jujitsu again.
I was, but long story
damn it.
long story very very short. You tell me if I'm hitting the nail on the head here. So let's say I'm going from.
I'm waiting for it to get short.
All right,
I'm just kidding. I'm
here.
kidding.
So let's say I'm going for an armbar. Okay, we all know what an armbar is, right?
Yeah.
I was always going for the armbar, but this person's defending it well. So I'm going to pretend like I'm going for a totally different choke with no intention of ever actually going for it. I'm going for it sort of because I know they're going to start defending it, which opens up the arm.
Yep. Wide open.
Wide open.
That's all pressure matrix stuff, and that's all the 10 rules to live by. It's like he doesn't want his arm. He doesn't want his. He'd rather have his heel hooked than his arm broken. So
exactly.
I'm going to make the heel hook, make him think that's what I want, and then he's going to expose that arm, and that's what's going to get.
Exactly right. Right.
It's chess. This shit ain't checkers.
Yep.
Yeah. 100%.
You know what's cool about these rules is like I've thought them. I've taught I wouldn't say all of them in the way that you taught them, but they're very familiar.
Yeah.
And they're very familiar to my thought process, which is amazing. And there's definitely things that I know I practice, but then there's like one or two that I'm like, yeah, I need some work on those. You know,
you're still practicing. Practicing becomes permanent. How you practice determines how you perform. And if you're practicing something shitty, it's going to be permanently shitty.
Doing it shitty, right?
That's right. So you just becoming aware by using rule number 7 and 8. This is my pattern. When it comes to this rule, I'm crazy on it. Okay. Well, you know that now. Well, I want to discover what part of it makes me. Where's the kink in the hose, so that this becomes a different pattern. By the way, rule number 8, the pattern you said,
the pattern you get.
Well, I actually noticed that with a lot of the rules is I like how you double back on it in a really cool way because I agree with Brent. It's like, you know, maybe the reason why, and Lynn, I'm sure you would agree too, like it's not just, like you said, the rules don't just apply to dog training, they apply to a lot, but we tend to notice a lot of dog trainers also tend to be into a lot of similar things like self-growth, you know, business podcasts or whatever. And all that stuff, rules apply to that because it's kind of about, it's about like this combination of self-evaluation, being decisive, making moves. But I like the way that you double back on it, right? Like remind me rule number 10 again.
Plan the actions you will take.
And take it the way you planned. That second half, I think, is the part that like I personally would forget about a lot. You know what I mean? Like that, like the when you double back on some of the rules like that, it makes a lot more concise sense to my brain.
Yeah.
Well, just like the pressure matrix, it's all happening at the same time in some form or another. It's the biggest percentage is what I call that rule or call that pressure or use to define. Yes, of course, it's psychological pressure, but to get there, I had to use physical pressure. Right.
So I had a question. So looking at these rules, like if I was going to be a devil's advocate, right? All of these have a lot to do with controlling as much as you can to create,
but not being controlling.
Yeah. So that's a good point. I wanted to talk about. So control it. What is within your control, ultimately, right? Whatever is in your control, exercise control over it to develop the best outcome. Is that a decent interpretation of the rules?
Yeah. If there's something I want to control that I don't have the ability to control at the moment, well, then I'm gonna go up to rule number 7, get ahead of this behavior to find out what I need and create a new pattern because I started with rule. They all kind of help each other.
Totally. I get it. It's almost setting yourself up for success so that you never have to actually be controlling.
All 10 rules are really just rule number 1.
Right.
Okay. Right. But yes, I don't want to be controlling because then you're forcing it. When you take something by force, you have to maintain it through force. And so you can have control of the dog, but it isn't able to bite somebody. Does not mean you're in control of the dog.
Right.
So it doesn't need to bite anybody.
Right.
And that having control of the dog so it can't hurt anybody, you can see my face. That's somebody who does not have self-control. That means they don't know what to do. Well, first thing you need to do is Goldilocks that shit. If you can't walk away, you can't do anything. So that's the first thing I teach people, especially when they're like this, so scared. Move.
And I think that Goldilocks rule is like one of the only rules that I can see staring at this list that infers intention, like what is just right, like what is just right. You know what I mean? So I think that's the biggest thing, because like you could take these 10 rules and use it for evil if you really wanted to interpret it that way.
Yeah, I started
But
telling you about that, and if you noticed halfway through that story, I changed it back to
Yeah.
dogs, because that's one of the big reasons why I didn't write it at first, because you can really take advantage of people.
well, yeah, I mean, like
But
you look
again,
at
at
like
what
Jordan
point is that
Peterson's
not your
like 12
problem,
rules,
though?
you could look at that bad too, but
Well, you can look at
it's-
anything bad. I mean, like, I've heard these different, like I've always been just a really big fan of being a student. Like, I just like hearing things, not necessarily emotional or whatever. I just want to hear the information. And so, like, something that I've heard a lot of people get shit on for, but I've heard a lot of people bring it up in school when I was in school or whatever, is like, technically speaking, all right? Don't get me wrong. Technically speaking, let's say, Hitler was clearly a fucking psychopath. But clearly, for whatever reason, he was charismatic. Like he was convincing people. Like he had to have some sort of positive something, because otherwise,
there's a lot of things you could say he was not. Like you can't say he wasn't a good speaker.
Well, no.
You
I
can't
would say there's a lot of things that he was good at. Let's say, and now
Yeah.
he used being good at these things for evil. Like someone can be
Yeah.
an amazing marksman, and that's not a bad skill, unless you're like the Zodiac
bad.
killer, just sniping random people.
Yeah.
But proficiency in a skill set is not the same thing as intention, and a lot of people
Right.
get that wrong.
Right, for sure. Yeah, so the big key here is, I think, that Goldilocks rule of like, what is just right? What is just right, I guess, would have to be like, what is universally just right for this relationship, for this dog, for this situation.
It's a good place to start, right in the middle. And sometimes people, that's why I talked about earlier, overcompensate or undercompensate. We got to find the Goldilocks in every aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to find Goldilocks to be able to get the show finally going.
Right.
Take the chance and turning it off and starting it over, and, do it just right. So, I mean, any aspect of life. But the main portion of it is to deflate intensity by proximity. That's especially for dogs. And if people have been practicing trying to get control right there where it's too hot, first thing, you got to move. You're not in the mob and your feet aren't in concrete shoes.
Right.
Move. And as soon as you start to move, the dog will follow you. But as long as you're not, I don't know what to do, the dog's still going to go. The dog's still going to go. So when I teach these people, the confidence that they need first is to be able to walk away. I'll teach you all the stuff you need to do with your dog when that stuff happens, but I want to breed some confidence through some accomplishments. Right. And so instead of, because people tell me that my last trainer said, yeah, just avoid and go across the street. That's not what I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
It looks similar. Yeah. No. I want you to look ahead and see that my ability to control my dog around another dog isn't up to par right now. The possibility of me controlling my dog over there across the street is much higher. So I'm choosing to go across the street to then get my dog into a stationary posture. Yeah. That is a choice. That's rule number one. I'm choosing my destination. Yep. I'm choosing the direction. I'm choosing the time. I'm choosing the reason. And here we go. And as soon as you start, the dog says, "Oh, that woman's being decisive. I better follow."
They're making moves over here, right?
Yeah, because it's not an escape. It's not an avoidance, but it's the same physical movements. Until we can switch it in the mind, it's always going to be the same. It doesn't matter how far you go away. Right. If they're afraid, they're afraid. But as soon as they can see one time that the dog actually followed them across the street, wow, I did that. Yes, you did. Now let's see what else you can do. Now I need you to get back in your lane because it was a detour. Right. Most people cross the street and go around the corner, and the dog is and then forgets about the other dog. No, cross the street, yield from that big hole in the road, get back in your lane so your dog can
smell wafted.
Smell the wake that dog left. I don't want him to react again. I just want him to smell that dog wasn't necessarily a threat, and you don't feel threatened anymore. So I guess I can change that association.
Yeah. I really love that video you had on YouTube about it was very recent. It was the one of the dogs, the two labs or something that were outside of their yard, and you walked by them.
Off-leash dogs charged me in Kellis?
Yeah. That was a great one. Yeah, that was a great video. I want to go ahead.
I didn't narrate that video. I was narrating it as it was happening.
Right.
Yeah, it was really insightful, and I love how you did the close-ups for the body language, and you named the body language postures. It was worth it though. It was a really good piece of content. I know we're running out of time, and I really want to thank you for your time. We have one question that we always ask our special guests. This question started with Tyler. He was one of our first bigger guests on the podcast a year and a half ago, and we've been asking every single person this. The question is this: we talked about dog training as art, right? And we're all artists within the industry, interpreting things the way that we are. And learning from the greats and learning from the people who have the experience like yourself and just the wealth of knowledge that you have. If you were to consider, yourself as an artist in this dog training industry, what would you say is the biggest tool in your artist toolbox that allows you to be as effective as Linn Boyke is?
Empathy, understanding, patience, in order to get that level of communication. Communication is, if I only can have one word, I would say communication, but I can't communicate without those aspects of it. Being patient and understanding that if I'm communicating with another species or even another human, they all have their own perception. Mm-hmm. And until our perceptions are on the same plane, the conversation doesn't begin. So I have to help or be patient and wait and guide them into that zone to then see that it's a common ground, that we are here to help, not harm. Or you get what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question or
not.
No,
definitely. That was clear, super clear.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being on with us. This was crazy. Like it's cool. It's cool to be able to have conversations with people. And I don't know, like joking aside, I don't know if it's just because the more we have the opportunity to speak with people, the more we just kind of know how to ask questions, or if we're just lucky enough to just get amazing guest after guest after guest. But it's been such a blast, man. I look forward to meeting with you and just going from there.
Yeah.
I love it, man. We really appreciate your time and just your well time. We definitely have to have you back on for another episode.
For sure.
At some point.
Absolutely.
Let me know.
Would definitely love that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on season 2, episode 6. We have our special guest, Mr. Linn Boyke. Thank you again, man, for joining us. You guys can go ahead and find him on Instagram at Linn, Linn, Boyke, Boyke. You guys can also check him out at linnboyke.com. And at the schoolofdogpsychology.com as well. Those of you guys who are interested in supporting the Dog Trainers Podcast, go ahead and check us out at thecanisfoundation.org, and you guys can donate anything you'd like so that we can help create content for you guys. We really appreciate you guys, and we will see you again in season 2, episode 7. My name is Brent LaBrada, and that guy over there is Mariano Alvarez and Mr. Linn Boyke. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope that you enjoyed this episode and can't wait to be back with you guys. Be sure to follow us at Dog Trainers Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to punch the hell out of that subscribe button and leave us a review.
Remember, guys, this is your podcast. You're the best listeners in the world, and we'll see you next time.